Hello, I'm Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels. Today's project is going to be this Penn Fierce 4000. And if you saw my Penn Fierce 2 3000 video, then this is very, very similar reels. And there's nothing wrong with this reel. It works perfectly. I'm going to service it real quick, and we're going to get it ready to go out on my boat. And come along for the ride if you have one of these. All right, that's got that off. Now we're going to remove the handle. All right, this has gotten really stiff in here because it's probably never been off, and you can see a little bit of saltwater corrosion in there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to spray a little WD-40 down in there. And we'll maneuver that around a little bit. And that should break that free, eliminate that salt, and get it ready to go. Also, yeah, you can feel a little grit in there now, which I didn't feel before. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pop this cap out for the knob. There we go. And we're gonna go ahead and oil down inside there. And then put the cap back on. And set that over to the side. All right, the next thing we're going to do is remove this side cover here. You'll notice that the side cover screws have got these little plastic seals on them. See those? Those are to seal out the threads to keep corrosion from getting down inside there. It kind of works, it kind of doesn't. You can feel just a little bit of corrosion in these. Just don't lose them. It doesn't hurt anything if yours is missing them. It really doesn't make that much difference. I don't really think they seal all that well. It was just an attempt. All right, I can feel a little corrosion on the threads of these. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and spray those also. And I'm going to put a little bit down in each of the holes just to give that an opportunity to dissolve some of that saltwater corrosion that's down in there. I'm going to take off this bump cap. There we go. And it's got some old grease inside there. All right, once you've got the butt cap off, this one, unlike the Fierce 2 that I did, this one has a screw under here. The Penn Fierce 2 did not have a fourth screw under here. There were only 3 screws holding the side case on. Okay, there's those. Now this side case should come off reasonably easy. All right, there we go. So that is definitely a difference between the Fierce 2 3000 and the Fierce 1 4000. Yeah, there's definitely grit inside here. This one's going to have to go into some hot soapy water to get the grit out of it. Let's pull off the bearing, take a look at it. Let's see if we can spin it up. Bearing seems to be okay. I'm going to spray that with some WD-40 and give it a chance to soak. Now, before we can take this main gear out, we've got to take this screw out and remove the axle shaft. So let's go ahead and do that next. And in the event that this screw is not where it is right here, you can rotate this around If yours was in this position when you opened it, then you just rotate the rotor around until you bring the screw down where you can get hold of it. Okay. Remove the axle shaft. And it appears to be in really good shape. Now we can remove the main gear. And don't lose these shims on the side right here. We'll lay those over to the side right here. This particular one has got 4 of them. Okay. Let's see if we can get this gear out. There we go. And it's definitely got some old grease in it. As a matter of fact, that's caked down there and doesn't want to come off. But look at this. See the corrosion on the back side of the gear? Okay, we're going to scrape and clean all that up. Get it out of there. And hopefully this is going to run a lot smoother than it's doing right now. Okay. Let's take out the crosswind block. And aside from being dirty, it appears to be in good condition. We're going to take out the crosswind gear. There we go. And that's not as bad as I would have expected. There is a little bit of grit in there, but not bad. Let's go ahead and unscrew this side cover. And now I'm going to go in here with a screwdriver and push out this side case bearing, or try to. There we go. Let's remove the side case bearing. And let's spin it up and see how well it spins. Very, very tight, but it's smooth. Okay, so let's go ahead and set it over there, and we're going to spray it with WD-40, and hopefully it's going to loosen up. I think that's probably the one that was keeping this reel feeling tight when you would spin it. It would wind down very quickly. All right, that's got that done. Now let's come over here, remove the screw for the locking nut for the rotor. Take that out. Remove the locking plate. And let's remove the nut, which was very loose to begin with. Okay. So we've got the locking nut removed, so now we should be able to pull the rotor off. Set that to the side, and let's go ahead and remove the screws for the main bearing and anti-reverse clutch. Okay, now we'll remove the bearing retainer, grab hold, and pull out on the pinion gear, and hopefully it's going to come out of there. If it doesn't, if you pull, give it a good tug and it doesn't come out, what you can do is you can slide your rotor back on, like so. Screw the nut back on, like so, and then use the rotor to give you leverage to pull, like so. All right, with that done, you can just go ahead and unscrew the nut back off and remove this assembly. Here we go. Okay. Now notice that there's a plastic piece, an insert right there. We're going to go ahead and remove that. Like so. Set it over to the side so we don't lose it. Now we're back to taking this apart. Now on the front of it, there is a bearing. There we go. I'm going the wrong way. That's why. Okay. Add it backwards. There should be a shim here. I believe there is anyway. It appears there's a shim. Nope, no shim. All right. This is our bearing holder. And they will get corroded up, so you really need to take these out clean them up, get all the corrosion off of them, clean up your bearing, and put it back together if it will go. There's that shim. I told you there was a shim in there. All right, there's that shim for the main gear, or for the main bearing. And oh, this is really, really gritty inside. Okay, so let's see how this one spins up. Well, it feels nice. So the grit seems to be on the outside. Let's go ahead and spray that one down. I think I'm going to end up soaking all of those in some acetone. All right, now we're going to take out the anti-reverse clutch assembly. That's this piece here, or pair of pieces. Okay, the plastic piece that you see here goes on the bottom, or towards the gear. Let's slide this sleeve out, like so. And to clean this clutch assembly, simply take a cotton swab and rub it around in there like that. And you keep doing that with cotton swabs until it comes out clean. All right. Once that's done and you've got it clean, you can go ahead. Where did the sleeve go? And reinstall the sleeve, like so. Okay. One last bearing. And it turns freely, but see, it's an open bearing. And I'm going to see if I might have a replacement for that. Interesting that in the Penn Fierce 2 3000, these two bearings here were the same size, and they're not in the Penn Fierce original 4000. So I'm going to take the time now. Go ahead. I'm going to go off camera, clean all these up. When I come back in a few minutes, everything's going to be cleaned up and ready to go back together. All right, I've got all the other parts cleaned up, but I decided let's go ahead and do this rotor too before we get putting everything back together. Let's go ahead and take this thing apart. We're going to start off by removing this end of it up here, if it will come off. Sometimes this screw will get in such a bind that you cannot get them to unscrew, and you would end up snapping it off if you end up trying to force it. So let's see where we stand on this one. There we go. Okay, this one's going to unscrew. All right, once you take this off, you'll find that there's a plastic washer in here and a metal insert washer. Let's see if this side over here will come off like it does on the other Fierce reel. Yep, there we go. We can take that off that way. And we're going to come back up here and see if I can get, yeah, I got the metal washer out and the plastic washer. We'll take those two and we're going to put them on here for safekeeping. And let's go ahead and put the screw back in. And we're going to come back to this in a few minutes and clean it online, on camera. Now let's go ahead and take this side apart, which there's not much there, but if you feel this one, it's kind of gritty. You can probably get by on this end of it with just spraying it with some WD-40, but let's go ahead, since this is all about how to take things apart, let's go ahead and do this. I recommend that you not take these things much further apart than what we've done right here. But if you must, if you've got grit and stuff inside there that has to come out, go ahead and take this off and you can clean that part. All right, so we're going to scrub that up in a minute. Now the last part to come off is going to be this part over here. And this definitely is your last ditch. Let's not take this apart. So I'm going to unscrew this screw, and what you're going to see under here is a spring assembly. Okay, let's get that out. Now we're going to take this cap off, and when we do, you're going to see the spring. There's the spring, and it's just like the one that was in the other Fierce. Okay, I'm gonna put my thumb on top of that one and hold it in place while we unscrew this screw. Okay, now I recommend you hold this in place as best you can until you get this screw out of the way and can handle this on your own. Okay, once you've got that done, leave this in this up position, grab hold of it, and gently work it up out of there, and you're going to be fighting the spring. Okay, there's the spring. Okay, and that's come off, and now we can take this all the way apart and clean it. Okay, and the only thing this is going to take to clean this is we'll take and spray a little WD-40 in here. And I'm going to scrub it just a little bit, not much. All you need to do is just get any grit that's in there to break loose and come out. And then just take a couple of cotton swabs and swab it dry. Now, if when you did this, it still feels gritty inside, you may want to take and scrub this, putting it under hot soapy water. Okay, and rinse it out real good to get that grit out of there. But all of it needs to be out. You can't leave it in there. If it's there, it will just continue to eat away at the parts. Okay, once that's done, wipe this part off. Let's put a little bit of grease inside here. A little bit over here. And we're going to set this trip lever, long end, goes in first, right into this slot. Slide that up. Make sure it goes all the way up like that. Next to get wiped off, it's going to be this post right here. Now, on the Fierce 2 3000 that we did, this piece was metal. And I like the metal a lot better than that plastic. So I would almost be tempted, if that piece broke, to order the one for the Fierce 3000 and put it in here, because that plastic just doesn't show me too much. Okay, and I'll wipe this piece out. This is the cover, so that in case there's any grit down inside there, we can get that out. And then this last piece is the arm for the bail wire. And now we're ready to start putting all this back together. Okay, so we've got a little bit of grease in here. We put a little bit here. Let's put just a tab, just a little dab on the post. And then on this plastic piece, we're going to put a little here. Number one, that will help it maneuver inside there. Number two, it will help hold it in place because it goes into this hole right there. Okay, like that. And you want to try to get that to stay in place while you set this back in place. Okay, so make sure this one is up all the way. Set this back into place like so. Like that. Okay, and then put your screw back in. Remember, you don't have to set the spring yet. Okay, that should move freely, and see how the plastic piece and the trip lever move here? Let's bring it up here closer. Okay, now the spring now is going to slide over the end of that plastic arm, like so, and slide up in there like that. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to hook a screwdriver and your thumbnail on there and slide it down until you lock it into that hole like that. Okay, now that's doing what it's supposed to do. And it's moving freely. There's no grit in there. Add a little bit of grease to the spring to help it slide better. And let's put this cover back on. Now we're going to come back to this end, make sure it's clean. Make sure that this piece here is clean. And this piece was kind of gritty feeling before. So we wiped it down, cleaned it off. There we go. Now we'll put a little bit of grease on the post and a little bit here on the face, not a lot. Grease has a tendency to capture dirt. Okay, put this on there. Make sure it will pivot well without feeling gritty. If it will, then you've got it. You've got the dirt cleaned out of it. Put it back together. Go ahead and put your screw in. Make sure it's in this up position. If it's down, it won't pivot around to where it needs to be. Okay, that should pivot back like so. Okay, if you over tighten the screw, it can cause it to bind just a little bit. Still a little tight. Okay, there we go. Let's come back now. I'm going to wipe this down. And we're going to take this apart. Let's take the screw out. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, we're going to take the screw out. Get down here. And we've got the metal washer. And it's got a little plastic washer on top of it right there. Okay, so you got the metal washer, little plastic washer, and you've got this make sure it almost looked like the bearing, like the bushing wasn't in there, but it is. Okay, slide the bushing out. It'll slide out. Should. All right, looks like I'm gonna have to fight a little battle here. I'm gonna go offline for a few minutes. All right, that took me a little while to do, but I managed to get the plastic insert out without tearing it up. And I haven't tried refitting it back in here, but we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. Put some oil in here on this thing. And roll this guy around a little bit and see if he don't go in there just fine. Well, no, it's still fitting in there very tight. And normally, I mean, it will still roll on this insert, but normally I'm used to both pieces being able to roll, and this one's not doing that. So, but I think it'll be all right. Let's go ahead and grease it, this post. Set this plastic washer on, set the roller in place, set this plastic washer in place, set the metal washer in place, like so, and I believe we are ready. The smooth side facing towards this assembly. Okay, and we're going to set this in place. Bring this arm around over here where we're going to want it to go in. Let's go ahead and insert it into here and rotate it. And now you see it locks into place. Now we can put this part in. Now, if when you do this, this part isn't lining up directly with this hole, you need to bend this wire to get it to shape right. Otherwise, it's going to supply tension and it will keep this from operating properly. All right, let's go ahead and get this screw in. Okay, now the roller will still move like it's supposed to. Bell comes up, it trips down easily. All right, we've got the rotor assembly rebuilt and ready to go back together. So let's put this reel back together. First thing we're going to do is we're going to install this plastics insert. I'm going to take it and put it on top of the cotton swab, and I'm going to slide it in through this hole in the end right here, and it's going to go right into this position right there, like so. Give it a little turn, make sure it stays in. With that installed, we're going to come back to this piece. This is our pinion gear and pinion shaft, and we're going to slide this other plastic piece in the end of there. That's the bushings that this requires. Okay, the next thing that's going to go on, it's going to be this washer, or sorry, this bearing. It slides down like this. Next to go install is going to be our anti-reverse clutch, and it's going to go in like this. Slide this down, and you'll know if you've got it right because the plastic piece goes to the bottom, like so. That goes up towards the gear. Okay, set this in place like this. Okay, and make sure your anti-reverse clutch is functional. You should be able to rotate the gear this way, but not be able to backpedal it. With that done, we're going to take this bearing, install it in this bearing retainer, like so, and we'll set it in here, just like this. That's got all of that built up properly now, and we're going to come back. Let's real quick, before we put this Teflon bearing washer in, and grease or oil this, and then go ahead and install this shim. All that done, you can set this back into place like that. Okay, now you look at this one and it appears to be the same all the way around, but it's not. When you set it in place, make sure that your wide gap is up here on this end. If you turn it this way, see how they don't line up? Okay, it has to go in with the wide gap over here on this side. Now we'll take this screw. All right, that's got that installed. It fits in there properly now. And it's time to install the rotor. And you got the two flats on the sides of the pinion shaft here that have to line up to the flats in here. Okay, now unlike the Fierce 2, this one doesn't have that large metal insert washer here. So let's go ahead, tighten down the nut. Okay, that all spins freely. Not quite as quiet as I would like it to be, but not too bad. Let's install the locking plate before I forget it. There we go. Set it in there. Now we're going to assemble the gear train. We're going to start off with the crosswind block, and we'll coat it well with grease. Every part of it comes in contact with every other part, it seems like, so make sure that you grease it well prior to setting it in, and add a little grease to the top of it, because that's where the crosswind block is going to ride. Next, we're going to grease just the bottom of the crosswind block, like so. Set that in place. Remember, this little lip here has got to go up underneath this metal bracket over here. Okay, get that set in place. Come on. My big bulky fingers don't want to put it in there. There we go. Now it's in. Hang on. Time out. Before we do that, we need to reinstall this side bearing. And I really tried to loosen this up, and it feels like it's still really tight. And it is really tight. It's turning, but it's supplying a lot of resistance. Let's see if I've got a replacement for this. No, I'm afraid that's one I didn't order, so I'm going to have to take a little time here and see if I can get this cleaned up, get this old grease to dissolve out of here, and get this one up and running again. I put that in some acetone for a few minutes and got it freed up, and then re-oiled it. And I'm going to put it in now and slide it right up in there in the side case. And that was a large part of the performance issue that this reel was having. It was working, but it was tight. It was a tight reel. And it's just about time for me to refill my oil bottle. Oil the bearing. Now we're going to set the crosswind block back in. And, the crosswind gear, crosswind block back in now. Like so. And at that point, we're ready to take our main gear, inspect it. It's clean. It's got a few places where it seemed like maybe it was getting a little corrosion on it. I cleaned those up best I could. Definitely on the backside, but the backside, people tend to not put grease on the backside of these gears, and I find that when you do get some corrosion inside there, if it's got grease on it, it's less likely for the corrosion to eat it up. And I'm not talking large quantities of grease. I just a coating of grease would kind of help. Although, in this instance, this area right here on the grease, on the gear, had a large coating of grease, and it seemed to collect moisture, and it at least tarnished it. Okay, I'm gonna put a little on the back side just to kind of clean, just to help keep it from getting retarnished. And we're gonna set this main gear down inside there now. Okay, set it down in. Okay, and we're gonna take a moment, put some grease on the back side right here, like this, and let's reinstall these 4 shim washers. Okay, slide them on there. And at this point, we are ready to take our axle shaft, oil it, slide it in, rotate it around a little bit to ensure that it's lubricating everything in there. And then let's get it to line up with the crosswind block back here. And this is where we're going to have a little bit of trouble because this is already advanced somewhat. So now it wants to be over there. So let's go ahead and pull the main gear back out for a second. Push this back a little bit. Let's get this to where this would line up. There, like so. Okay, once we got it there, let's go ahead and slide our main gear back in, like so. Push this back in, there we go, lines up the hole. And I'm going to reinstall the screw in the crosswind block. The axle shaft to it, and should allow us to be able to spin it now. And of course there's no override, so there's no way to return this anti-reverse. Turns it back out this way, you can only go forward. All right, I'm going to slide this bearing on now. And we're going to go ahead and give that bearing one more drink of oil. And now that we have this side case all clean, let's go ahead and slide it on. It should snap into place if everything lines up properly, and it did. Okay. Now, this little Phillips head pan head screw goes in here, countersunk. And then these three go in. Remember, they've got their little clear washers on them. I think that O-ring just didn't worth a darn. I think it's shot. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down without the O-ring, leave it off. And like I said, I don't really think it hurts anything if it's not there. Let's snug this one up a little more. Okay, there we go. All right, last but not least, we're going to put this guy back on. It's got this little hook here. Put that hook up under there first. Get it to go down. And you're ready to reinstall your screw. Okay, now my handle, remember we lubricated this handle, free it up a little bit. That was with WD-40. Now we're going to come back and add a little bit of oil, because WD-40 is really good for cleaning, but it doesn't seem to do that much for long-term oiling. So put that in, slide this over. Let's crank the handle in. There we go. Okay, we're going to screw on the pin cap for this side. That's going to bring us down to doing the... All right, now this Fierce 1 is different. Okay, we've got 3 screws that are going to hold this in instead of the snap ring that we had in the Fierce 2 3000. Instead, we've got 3 screws holding down a rubber O-ring or plastic O-ring over top of the drag washers. There we go. And no, that's a metal ring. It's not plastic, that's a metal ring. Okay, get that out. Now we're going to pull out the drag washers. And again, they're felt drag washers. I'm going to take a minute to clean them up. Okay, we've cleaned this out. We've cleaned up the drag washers. And like I said, we've got felt drag washers here. So we're going to oil them. So we're going to put in the first one. And we're going to give it a coating of oil. Then we're going to put in the first keyed washer that's got the flats on each side here. I'll drop that in. Then we'll put in another felt drag washer. Tag it down. By the way, these appear that someone put in, they greased them either with Vaseline or with a, possibly with Cow's Universal Drag Grease. That's not really appropriate from what I've been led to understand for felt drag washers. Felt drag washers should be oiled. So I cleaned out the grease as best I could, and we're giving them a coating of oil. Last but not least goes in the last of those keyed washers, and we're going to set this metal ring back in place and see if we can't get the screw started back in. Now, don't screw any of these all the way down until you've got all 3 started. All right, with all of them done, we're ready. Let's go ahead and clean up and lubricate the bottom of this real quick. There's a little bit of dirt in here. We're going to clean that out. Clean the shaft here. And our clicker is starting to look, it's not bad. Let's go ahead and give the clicker a drink of oil. And oil the spring as well. And what that'll do is it'll help keep it from getting corroded and rusty. go ahead and drop this back on now. Before you do, make sure that your washer, which was installed in the wrong place, it was under here instead of up here. And at least I believe that's what I saw. Okay, let's set that in place. Let's check this. Is it dirty? Yes, it is. Let's wipe it out underneath. Okay, there's our drag knob. Let's tighten it down. All right. Let's see how she works now. All right, there you have the Penn Fierce original version, which I guess you could call a 1, but they're not called Penn Fierce ones. It's called just a Penn Fierce. Penn Fierce 4000, and it's been serviced. It functions beautifully. And if you've never held one of these, you need to. They're very nice little reels. I see people all the time, or I've been watching YouTube videos where people talk about reels. They talk about how super smooth they are, and how, you know, well, this particular one has got 5 bearings, and this one's got 11 bearings, and this one has only got 5, so it's not really as good. Well, let me tell you what, this is a really nice reel. It is not a super high dollar reel. It's a good reel, and it performs very well. And I will be happy to put this one on my boat. It's already loaded with a braid, and I'm not a big fan of braid, but I will use the braid since it's already on there. And this is going to go out to my boat and become one of my boat reels. So that's 2 of them done now. I have 1 more to do. That's going to be the Penn Fierce 5000, and it's a much heavier reel. And again, this is one of those that doesn't want to spin. You know, you can get it up and going, but it just kind of, it's sluggish. So I'm going to take this one apart, and it's going to be the 3rd of that series. And when I'm done with those, we're going to move on to something completely different. But and if you guys want to skip these, that's fine. I'm doing them so that if somebody has this particular reel, they can look it up on YouTube, find it, and pull it up, and there's the full instructions on that particular reel. So for now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out.